Welcome to DAO Deep Dives, where we interview DAO founders, core DAO contributors, and everyone else who works on the periphery of decentralized autonomous organizations.
All right. Welcome, guys. Super excited for another DAO Deep Dives episode. Today, we're talking to Nathan Phillips from what we will figure that out here in a minute. There is a couple of names floating around. He's working on a couple of cool things in the DAO space, DAO auditing, involving some AI. So I'm very excited to learn more. Welcome, Nathan.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here.
So I appreciate you're taking some time out of your busy life for us. I was going to mention the background as well. I think it's actually quite refreshing to see that that's just startup life, right? It's the hustle. You need to do what you need to do. And maybe you should join Kift DAO. Are you familiar with Kift? They're van life kind of DAO.
Yeah. I was introduced to them in Denver because I actually drove this cross country to Denver and stayed in it for the ETH Denver conference. So that's when I had a few people recommend Kift DAO at that time. Yeah.
One of the things that we like to ask just from the individual perspective is, what is a DAO? So looking for your own interpretation of that, really.
Yeah, I guess I'd have two definitions. One would be disorganized activities online. Another, I don't know if it exists quite yet. I guess somewhat that you could call me a literalist in terms of a DAO, a decentralized, autonomous, and organization. Working to get there, I think. There's a lot of work done to get there. So it is a hard line to take in the sense of I want to get to what that is. In between, or I guess before that, until we're able to get there, we're all figuring it out. And I would say, so I guess how I would just explain to someone is a digital co-op right now. For someone who doesn't know what a DAO is or Web3 or anything, I would just say, describe it as a digital co-op and say everything's done online, it's distributed, and has a lot more ability than the traditional co-op model.
I like the disorganized part. That certainly is true for many of these communities out there right now. Before we go into the depth here, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and what is Celium and Illusaq in just a couple of sentences?
Okay. Yeah, full-time in Web3 for 2 years now. Dabbled a bit here and there before that. And joined up with a project that was converting to become a DAO and learning about how the values of decentralization can be put into motion just really sparked to life that passion for me, and realizing that there's now a vehicle to really explore those concepts. So Celium, which is where it started, was to solve what I saw as one of the biggest problems in this space, which is the lack of definition for decentralization. Maybe let me rephrase that. Maybe not that there's a lack of definition, because that's not necessarily a problem, but the fact that bad actors were taking advantage of that term, slapping decentralized on what they were doing, and then basically running a massive grift or fraud, or whatever you want to phrase what happened over the past 12 months in crypto. And Illusaq is the evolution of trying to understand what decentralization is and provide ways for us to self-regulate, to verify, and to validate. I say us, I mean DAOs. To verify, validate, and then self-regulate so that we can shine a light on good projects and hopefully send some of the rascals running away from our space.
So that's interesting. There's a lot in there already, and I want to take it just a step higher, I think. So we talked before a little bit, and I know that what I had in mind is the term audit, and I think you are actually auditing DAOs. And I'm assuming a lot of our listeners and generally people in this space have heard of smart contract audits, but maybe not so much audits for DAOs. So give us a bit of understanding in what does that entail when you do an audit with DAOs. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I have 3 pilot projects going right now. So it's very much a work in progress, early stages. I think a good analog of what I have in mind, my vision for this, are the organizations that measure impact within a company or within an organization. Social impact, environmental impact, governance impact. So that is somewhat of let's call it a young science. I don't know exactly when it started. So it's roughly within the recent few decades, they started measuring impact within organizations. So now they've gotten more and more understanding of how to measure that within an organization, how to relate what an organization does within its office to the environment or to economic impact within people. And so that is the analog, and I'm at the very beginning of that process. So with these 3 pilot projects, what an audit looks like right now is doing ideally at least 2 rounds of surveys with the members, asking them about onboarding, about governance, about treasury, about communications, asking about the purpose of the DAO, if they understand it, where are some holes that maybe could be filled. And then the second one goes more granular in aspects of areas that are identified in that first round that are perhaps too centralized, or there's a point of concern in terms of the level of decentralization. So the second round then goes much more granular. And while that's occurring, the core team of the DAO, or the top contributors, are also filling out information sheets, providing from their end aspects of governance, some of the history behind their progress in terms of decentralization. So I do these 2 phases of information capture directly from core contributors and team members, and then surveys. And that is something that I analyze across about 150 points I would like to look at. I get as many as I can through these surveys and through this information sheet, and come back not with a score or a rating, like you're a 6 out of 10 or a 3 out of 5. So I don't want to rank. Again, I think it's too soon to come up with specific numbers if it's ever even needed at all. But what is looking at aspects of decentralization within the organization across different categories. Maybe there's blind spots. Maybe there's room for improvement. Maybe there's tools they're not aware of. And also just identifying things I think that we all know but tend to turn a blind eye to. The most common obvious example is the use of Discord. It was about a year ago, I think it was actually in April, Microsoft was threatening to buy Discord. If Microsoft bought Discord and bundled into Microsoft Office and it becomes a paid product, or they decide to kill it off, that'd be absolutely chaotic. So that's a vector, a major fail point for most DAOs. Yeah, I run through the analysis, look as many points as I can, come back with just suggestions, guidelines, try to illustrate progress as best as possible, in the hopes that over a number of time, as I get to do more and more of these audits, that some sort of metric will come into place. That will not only be helpful for DAOs to learn how to decentralize further if they're heading in the right direction, but then also in time, whenever the government, at least in the US, starts to give us clarity into what it means to be sufficiently decentralized, or whatever they're measuring, we don't know. I don't know if they know right now, but eventually someone's going to know somewhere what they're going to measure. And so hopefully my audits will give those DAOs a starting point, but then as the regulatory landscape becomes clear, start looking at that specifically within DAOs as well, and have this practice, this knowledge and ability ready to go when that time comes.
Yeah, I don't think the governments know. That's the most logical conclusion, I think, currently. So do you have any pre-work maybe on a technical level where you're gauging decentralization by just looking on chain and using tools of some sort before maybe a project gets started or an audit gets started? Is that a practice you do?
I do look at the treasuries, and I'm working on a side project with a couple people to hopefully come up with ways to analyze treasury within a DAO and the risk, basically a way to assess the risk of a DAO's treasuries, depending on the different currencies that they may hold, those currencies from another DAO, what currencies they hold, network effects of potential contagion and risk assessment.
What about organizations that you might turn down? So are you just fully open to whoever approaches you at this point? Or is there specific DAOs perhaps that are focused on a certain area, maybe that you're not very interested in working with, or your services don't really align with, perhaps?
My personal passion is in the impact space, so I would very much like to work with impact DAOs in the refi space. Specifically, we all seen what's happened with DeFi in the past year, and I would hate to see that happen to refi, because DeFi was bad on many fronts, but it was largely contained to what I would say the Web3 ecosystem. Refi is getting out, working in the impact space. It's having a lot broader implications if that were to, if it's the same thing were to happen within refi space. So personally, I want to really focus on impact DAOs and organizations. I'm sure there are ones I would turn down, but I haven't been approached by one yet.
Can you talk about any of the projects you're currently working with?
So the 3 I'm working with right now is Alchemix, ClimaDAO, and giveth. It's been interesting to see the results of the survey. I've written up kind of a preliminary report for the first two that I've done. I have about a 2,000 word report for each of those from the first round, but I'm a bit hesitant to put that out there yet because I think the second round hopefully should illuminate more detail and might even change what I'm seeing at this point in time. But I'm really excited to get those three. I want to get them wrapped up, get to final reports, and then start analyzing them, some of the commonalities or similarities or differences within them. One of the DAOs even asked, what I'm seeing in other DAOs that could apply to what they're doing, because they mentioned that there's no single source of truth or trusted authority inherently within a decentralized ecosystem. So they were expressing interest and excitement at learning from other people. And hopefully I can provide some of that in this round, but it is only 3 DAOs at this point in time. I'm really excited to work with hundreds and eventually thousands of DAOs and use AI, build a unique body of information and data from these hundreds, if not thousands of DAOs over time, learn about the different tool sets, the different frameworks for the different types of DAOs, and then with AI being able to analyze those, being trained on that unique body of data and information, along with market data, token action, of course, token price. For me, I think that's what I'm looking at, because yes, if I do audits with a dozen DAOs or 20 DAOs or even 100 over time, I may know more than most about a lot of things, but I've quickly learned already that AI is far more intelligent than me in many ways. And having a platform where people could use AI to study DAOs, so enabling other people to study DAOs and to look at how they're built, how they operate, find the building blocks of decentralization, different types of organizations. That for me is really exciting because that is exponential over what I could do on my own by many, many ways.
I keep coming back in my mind to these smart contract audits, CertIC or anything like that, right? These reports you generate on certain parts of your Web3 organization. Is that kind of how you think about it for now? How do you think about a report of a DAO?
Right now, it'd be pretty similar to a public report. That's what I will have out. There will be a very simple final report, bullet point suggestions, and some charts and graphs. And then there'll be the written report to go in depth. And then depending on each DAO can elect, I would assume they would elect for the transparent public option. Someone could then look at the survey results, of which the people submitted anonymously, and the initial reports, and they can have the full picture if they want. So it's a very comprehensive written report. That's what the Celium project is, and only what I think it can be at this point in time. Again, I don't think there's the capacity to do rankings or a stamp of approval like a smart contract audit. No way in hell can I or would I ever tell a DAO yeah, you're good to go. If the SEC comes knocking on your Discord, you're fine, nothing to worry about. No one knows. So there's no way to give that guarantee of your code's been fully audited, nothing bad can happen to you. We simply don't know. So this is getting the ball rolling so that someday we can know, or once we know again what that regulatory guidelines will be, we'll be able to know whether or not a DAO is there and what to do to get there. So in the future, though, with Illusaq, what I'm researching and working on right now is to have essentially a dashboard. I call it a decentralization dashboard. Let's say Etherscan for the different aspects of decentralization within a DAO, tracking over time. Let's say just on the simple fact of proposals. How many people were involved in the discussion around a certain proposal? How many people voted on it? How many people even talked on Discord around that proposal before that proposal went to discourse and then it went to snapshot? And how have those numbers changed over time from the very first proposal in the DAO to the most recent one? Are we seeing growth across certain factors that would indicate it's further decentralizing?
So what are the main KPIs or main things you're looking at, main points of this dashboard? How might it differ for someone like a listener that's thinking, can I just use Dune or something? How might it differ?
Yeah, it would be, a lot of it could be replicated on Dune, yes. So I think some of the main ones that jump out is information symmetry is something I've seen pop up in some of the communication recently, from government agencies. So learning how that could be tracked to create a graph for that. But then a lot of it is what could be done within Dune. But the simple fact of the matter is most DAOs don't do that. And so my goal is to have a Discord bot, a free Discord bot that a DAO can install in their server, and it would give this dashboard to them. And this bot can also help with onboarding, education, and support, because it would be trained on documentation from the DAO, their website, information. But then that bot can start to get a sense of sentiment from the Discord communications. It would have to use ZK proof, other privacy measures to ensure that individuals' data isn't compromised. But sentiment, I think, would be a really interesting one to have in this dashboard. But then in putting it right in their Discord, even if it is the same stuff that could be had on Dune, giving it to them essentially for free to put right in their Discord means that anybody can have it with just a few clicks of a button.
I would like to understand your transition or the journey in general, how that came about. You started fairly focused on audits and then realized there is an AI angle potentially. Like, what inspired you to look into that, and how did you make that decision, and where are you at with it?
Yeah, so I took the audits idea basically out to ETH Denver and talked to anyone and everyone that I could with the idea. I'd done some interviews, like some market research on, put the idea out there, but I needed more and more feedback and ideas to make sure it wasn't just something I'd cooked up in my room more or less on my own and was completely worthless. So I got a lot of positive feedback on it. A lot of people were very interested in doing it. Not many people were interested in paying for it quite yet. Unproven product in the middle of a bear market. It's a tough sell. But also, yeah, like I want to keep it as a research, almost unpaid service, if you will, at this point in time, because I don't want to. I've started businesses before where I had to get clients to pay rent and to make car payments and such, and that quickly led me to working with people I would have preferred to not work with, and not being able to work with the people I wanted to work with. So I want to avoid that trap in this situation. And I say that because with the audits, the manual side, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of time needed, I think, to really get to some sort of, again, meaningful metrics and meaningful value for a DAO. So to that end, I guess the direction I'm going there is getting it to hopefully some sort of open source kit, information kit, like with these surveys, these information sheets that at least a DAO can self-regulate. And then I saw my biggest concern within all of this is the fact that, especially recently, the last few months, the government seems to be stepping up its interest in crypto projects and DAOs. And I love decentralization because I think it is the vehicle through which the forces that control power, profit, privilege, and prosperity can be overturned. And people, grassroots, groups of people can organize, can build things together. And if decentralization, I guess I feel like it's under significant threat at this point in time because the government is stepping up interest. Unfortunately, we've had some bad actors in the past year use that name in the wrong way. And so the reason why I'm bringing AI now to do a lot of this analysis and a lot of this study is because I think it will accelerate the work that I want to do and hopefully get ahead of forces that could potentially threaten decentralization as a movement, DAOs specifically as well. Self-regulation in all new tech industries, you hear a lot now in terms of AI, but it's what's allowed modern tech of the last 20, 30 years to really flourish despite lack of regulatory clarity. Self-regulation goes a long ways and help establishing safe harbor as well. YouTube, there's still copyright violations on music on probably a minute by minute basis on YouTube, but because they now set up a system where YouTube sends an email to the person who uploaded the copyrighted content saying you need to take it down, you're in violation, blah, blah, blah. That self-regulation activity enables them to continue growing YouTube while people in Washington pretend to figure out how to actually regulate it. So I think the AI really accelerates, and like those decentralization dashboards, this open source toolkit for a DAO to put all this information on paper or on Notion, let's say, or even in a Google Doc so that this bot can read it and understand it, gets us to a place where we can self-regulate, or where DAOs can self-regulate. And hopefully then others will respect that and allow some safe harbor for breathing room, basically, to build. Because right now we're all building as quickly as we can, and there's a looming threat, I feel, constantly over all of us. So getting rid of that would be pretty nice.
It's cool that you're testing this out and already working actually with some DAOs that are well known, or at least their protocols are well known, right? Alchemix is super cool. I was a huge fan of it through like late DeFi summer, even now today. And Klima DAO was a lot of fun to be involved with as well. And then just like it's quite the spectacle for a minute there. These are really cool projects. So right now it's essentially an unpaid service, perhaps moving into a non-profit model, or what's the plan to sustain the business financially? How do you see that going? How do you see yourself achieving product market fit and revenue?
The current idea, yeah, for revenue, and just want to make it clear, if someone is willing to provide a grant or other means of funding for doing an audit, I would probably not be inclined to say no if they were to offer that. So it is available. Does not have to be unpaid. It can be a paid service. As far as Illusaq, kind of with that, the AI platform, what I envision is having right now, it'd be like a chat GPT type interface for a crypto investor or someone who just wants to do research on different DAOs. They could have a page where that's focused specifically on, let's say, Klima DAO, where a bot has been trained fully on all of its data, its documentation. If they do the audit that I'll be doing for them, but then if they self-audit again in the future, like they could submit that information to be a part of that bot. And that way, an investor could learn if they want to get involved with the project. It'd be a much simpler and easier way to get really specific, high-level, and detailed information that they're looking for as to what they're interested in for a project, whether it's for investing, whether it's to capture carbon, or if they're just genuinely curious, like, about this DAO. Because right now, the other alternative is to go through all their documentation manually, go through Discord, try to figure it out, get caught up, and everything else. So, yeah, being able to having that chat GPT like interface, I think there'd be a freemium and premium service plans for those.
So, what comes to mind when you're describing it this way, from a traditional startup's perspective, are pages like Crunchbase, which we use both on the startup side, but specifically on the investor side. Is that sort of how you think about this a little bit? Maybe the evolution of Crunchbase and pages like that, but specifically for DAOs?
Perhaps. I think it would have, because of what we're building and like the information from the decentralization dashboard for a DAO is also valuable information for risk assessment for a potential investor as well. So it might have a similar profile, like what a Crunchbase profile would have, but the emphasis would be on this unique information, this risk assessment from different perspectives that are currently subjective at best, if they're even available in the first place.
You got a grant recently. Where did you get that grant from, and how was the process in getting it?
Yeah, it was a $1,000 grant from Algovera, decentralized AI. They're working on decentralizing the full tech stack needed to have like an AI interface as a chatbot. I think they're working on a Slack integration, Telegram maybe. There's a few out there. So it was a $1,000 grant to build out some of these beta versions. I wish I could send anybody and everybody there for grants, but unfortunately, they've suspended the program for at least the time being. So yeah, I was excited to get that grant. Hopefully they can get that program back up and running again soon.
It sounds like the grant direction might be an interesting one for you at this time, right? Especially if you try to keep it as a service kind of offering, a public good almost for DAOs to learn more, to train the models going forward. Hopefully there is a couple more on the horizon. If anyone's listening who is interested in this space, get in touch. We'll put the contact information, of course, in the show notes, and support Nathan on this. I think that would there has been grants spent on sillier things, I believe, before.
So what else should we highlight? What do you want to talk about? What's interesting to you right now in the space? Maybe fill us in on something that you're excited about in the space of DAOs.
Yeah, the audits on the DAOs have been illuminating. Like one of the biggest things I think I've realized is that we all say that lack of engagement is a big issue for DAOs. And we're not quite sure where to start with that. And I think it's what I'm seeing in some of these surveys and some of the audits so far is that it's really a kaleidoscope of issues that are keeping engagement at lower levels. But it doesn't have to be complicated issues. Like I think I'm like Web3 in general, like we're often guilty of reinventing the wheel. Sometimes we can learn very quickly from outside organizations just because an organization or a group may be centralized doesn't mean that some of the practices or processes or systems that they have are necessarily bad. Those can be done in a decentralized way or in a decentralized system. And so I've seen a lot of people like reinventing the wheel, trying to figure out how to increase engagement, how to get DAOs bigger and better. And yeah, it's really a kaleidoscope of things that I'm still digging into, so I don't have any conclusions. There's no blinding, illuminating fact here or truth at the end of all this, but it's not something so simple as you can install one tool in your Discord and engagement is going to 10x. It's not as simple as having better marketing materials and engagement is going to go through the roof. It's not a referral program. There's no silver bullet that I've seen to increasing engagement at a DAO. There is a number of factors, and a lot of times that comes from doing some pretty boring work. The last few years have been terribly exciting to be in the Web3 and crypto space. And oftentimes, like, people want to be a part of it, but not a lot of people are signing up to doing the boring work. And that was one thing I was encouraged to see at ETH Denver is there's a lot of boring ideas and unsexy ideas of how to improve crypto and Web3. And I think that a lot of that is needed to help with DAOs, to grow this space and this idea. And I think people are kind of starting to realize it. So I'm in overall, like, I don't know what I was walking into with ETH Denver, but through that and through some of these audits and some of the conversations around it, I'm really encouraged, I think, by what's happening in the space. The frothiness has come to rest, and there's a lot of good people out there doing good work.
You couldn't agree more with that entire sentiment. One thing you just said is, I say this all the time, and this is not exclusive to DAOs. This goes for almost any project and startup. Everyone is extremely excited in the beginning, right? If it's at least some sort of a good idea on paper, everyone's, ooh, I want to be a part of that. And then a couple weeks in, everyone realizes, oh, we actually need to do the hard work now to make this happen. But I think what DAOs and community-driven projects and organizations need to do, and some of them are doing that really well, is give their members something meaningful to do. And that needs to go beyond just the idea, right? Because most people aren't naturally the people who figure out what there is to be done based on the idea. In DAOs, do you think we tend to maybe just over decentralize because that's the general idea and think it'll just happen? Do you think we still need those leadership structures or hierarchies, dare I say that word even, to encourage that? What have you seen there?
Yeah, I tend to be more on the hierarchy camp, or at least leadership camp. Let me phrase it that way. It doesn't have to be hierarchical, but at least leadership. I think the way DAOs are now, the way like onboarding and membership is structured, is for a specific type of personality. And if you are not that type of personality, it's difficult to get engaged. Also, there's just some like basic things. Like of all the Discords I've been to, DAOs I've actually joined, and ones I've contributed to, I have never once been asked by any of them, how many hours per week do you have? What would you like to do? If someone comes in and says, hey, I got 2 hours a week, I'm willing to contribute, what can I do? But the onus is on that person to like find the bounty board or make the connection, speak up in the group chats, whatever it may be. Like there's some simple ways, I think, to get just some much better engagement and onboarding that speaks to a lot of different types of people than I think the way a lot of DAOs are set up right now. Every time I build a team, because I have an entrepreneurial background for the last 15 years, there's purpose, principles, and passion. Everyone has those. And when someone joins a team, I like to learn what their principles are, like how they behave as a human, what's the top like morals or values for them, what are they passionate about, and why are they doing this job? What's their purpose for being here? And so if all three of those are aligned with the rest of the team, as far as like the team purpose, principles, and passions, and that's aligned with the organization's purpose, principle, and passions, there shouldn't really be a problem. And you have to, when I manage teams, like I do my best to keep up with those three things because those change for people on an ongoing basis. And as one person changes, that changes the team's version of it. And that could be out of harmony with the organization's version. A lot of times I think that the passion is there within DAOs, the purpose is there, but the principles are not always very clear, if they're clear at all. Just because that's the perspective I look at in the world. I see that's a huge, those principles, again, like how much time do you have per week would you like to contribute? What would you like to get back in return for giving 1 hour a week? What's the value here you're looking to create? What are your specifics? Something as crazy as like maybe even people could submit a resume to someone to see if just, even if it's 2 hours a week, like what are your top skills? What are you good at? We don't know what's lying in a lot of these discords and in a lot of these communities as far as like what's available to be unlocked, because a lot of those questions have never been asked. Unless you're the type of person that speaks up and really gets out there and gets it, most DAOs don't have systems to engage those types of people.
Yeah, we need the trading cards, the Ray Dalio, right? Those, he has that in his organization. Everyone has a baseball trading card with their skills and all of that on there. Like NFTs seem like a great option for this.
NFT resume.
Yeah. There you go. That's the next project.
Yeah, what I've found is most DAOs are just like come in and start doing work, start contributing, and then you do that and you start making a name for yourself that way. And then perhaps you create a proposal that says, or someone creates one for you that says we should bring this person on in a more serious role. I've seen it work that way quite a bit. I've also seen DAOs just put out job posts, right, as well. So I think we're watching it evolve. And so the evolution of DAOs is obviously something that's going to be interesting for us to all witness and be a part of. With that in mind, what's your hot take? Like right before maybe falling asleep, have you had some like epiphany or something where you're like, this type of company or this industry is going to radically change and because of DAOs? Do you have a hot take that's, I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years if X? Have you thought about or much about that?
Not recently, but I guess continuously since getting into DAOs, sports teams are just such an incredible natural fit. Passionate fans who already just give tons of money every year for merchandise, for pictures, for kids. I spend, I don't know how much money per year watching Arsenal oftentimes lose. I just thought of a crazy one I had recently too. There's room for one more.
Yeah.
A DAO whose token is an index coin of every token that's in that DAO's treasury. So everyone holds one token of this DAO. It's a percentage of all the tokens that are in its treasury. Grow that to scale so that when a DAO launches, they can launch through that DAO and have instant decentralization of the token, governance rights, and if it's an app or a platform, communications as well. So I feel like those are the three big things that at least the US government is really going to focus on in terms of determining if a token is a security or a commodity. So I guess it become a DAO launch platform that has a lot of members with an index token that anybody can launch through, and it's instant decentralization.
This sounds like a hedge fund with a venture capital arm that's eventually just a venture capital arm if they hold the index in all of their previously invested in companies. So yeah, definitely an interesting thing for me to think about. And I think for Sven too, as we're both interested in investment DAOs.
Yeah, 100%. This was a lot of fun, and we very much appreciate you sticking with us in the hot car in the Florida heat. Thank you so much, Nathan. We appreciate your time and a lot of learning. Good luck on this still very early venture of yours. Let us know if there is any way we can help or connect you to anyone in our network or other people who we may have interviewed. And to any listeners out there, if you want to be connected, we will put the links in the show notes. But just from yourself, let our listeners know how they can connect with you. What's the best way?
Yeah, right now it'd be on Twitter. My handle is Paxist0549, PAXXIST0549, which is also my Discord handle as well.
Amazing.
Cool.
With that, I think it's a wrap.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
And that's a wrap. Sven and Solve are your hosts for DAO Deep Dives, a podcast about all things DAO. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time.